Have you ever wondered why, amidst the daily grind and the hurried pace of life, even when your body is exhausted, just a fleeting word of criticism can keep you awake all night? Have you ever found yourself trying your best to live kindly, work diligently, and maintain inner peace with everyone? Yet just an unintentional remark from someone can weigh heavily on your heart. People can praise you one moment and criticize you the next, love you, and then abandon you all within the same day. Those external sounds, seemingly as fleeting as the wind, can penetrate our hearts like a needle, causing us countless pains. Many complain that a month of work doesn't exhaust them as much as a single remark that makes them sad for a week. It turns out that the pain from others' words can sometimes be deeper than the everyday hardships of life. Then we wonder why we are so easily hurt. Why can a word spoken by another control our emotions so powerfully? Little do we know that the cause lies not with the speaker, but within our own minds, when we choose to hold on to those things internally. If we look back at our youth, we'll see that we used to talk a lot. We liked to explain, to prove, to defend our ego with words. If someone misunderstood us even slightly, we'd rush to speak up. If someone disagreed, we'd immediately refute them. But then, as we entered more mature stages of life, as we navigated life's twists and turns, we gradually understood that peace doesn't come from winning an argument, but from the ability to keep our minds undisturbed. When we were young, we spoke to be recognized. When we grew older, we became silent for peace. That's why the more mature we become, the less we speak. Not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough not to need words to prove ourselves anymore. The Lighten Buddhist channel reminds us that the ancients taught that the words of others are like the wind. If we don't hold on to them, they will pass quickly. Suffering arises because we reach out to grasp them ourselves, allowing them to haunt our hearts. Some carry sorrow for years just from a single word of criticism. Some lose their peace of mind in life because of a single rumor. They try to clarify, only to suffer more. They explain, only to be further misunderstood. Their minds thus become full of turmoil. But there are also those who choose to let go. They hear without attachment, see without grasping, letting the wind carry away what doesn't truly belong to them. Such people often have gentle eyes and a serene smile, because they understand that others' words do not define their worth. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a saying that the mouth is the door to creating karma, and also the door to generating blessings. A single word can build trust, but it can also shatter harmony. The more one speaks when the mind is not sufficiently clear, the easier it is to sow negative karma. But when we are a little silent, when we choose which words to speak, which to hold back, we stop countless things that could cause ourselves and others suffering. Life is inherently short. Everyone gets tired sometimes and wants to find a place to take refuge. If we constantly chase after the praise and criticism of others, we will lose our refuge, most importantly, our own mind. Therefore, the older we get, the less we speak. This is because we understand that peace doesn't come from speaking a lot, but from keeping our minds undisturbed by external storms. Someone once told the Lighten Buddhist channel that only when we still feel the need to prove ourselves to others are we truly strong. When we choose to speak less, we are not losing, but winning. Winning against ourselves, winning against impulsiveness, winning against ego, winning against the moments of rashness that can lead us to create negative karma. To speak less is to preserve blessings and disregard worldly words, allowing the heart to be free. This life is essentially a transient realm we pass through, not a place to argue and compete with anyone. When we understand that, we naturally speak less, and our hearts become much lighter. Take a moment to sit down and reflect on yourself in recent days. Have you ever felt your heart heavy, as if carrying a thick fog in your chest, just because of an unintentional remark from someone? Have you ever lived wholeheartedly, been kind to others, endured a great deal, yet a gentle criticism or a fleeting reproach was enough to overshadow all your joy for the day? There are times you just want to peacefully do your work, but others label you with judgments you never even considered. Some call you slow, others say you're incompetent. Some utter sarcastic remarks that leave you silent, yet an indescribable turmoil rises within you. These words don't wound you like a knife, but they scratch your soul. Then you wonder why a comment that lasts only a few seconds keeps you tossing and turning for many nights. You don't understand why you're so easily hurt, while the speaker may have even forgotten they said it. In truth, you are not weak. You are simply human. Those with a heart are easily pained. Those with self-respect are easily touched in old wounds. Those who desire recognition and love are even more easily saddened when judged. This is entirely normal. In this life, no one can escape praise or criticism. No one is loved forever, nor hated perpetually. What causes us suffering is not the words out there, but our act of holding on to them for too long in our hearts. Words out there are like the wind. If we stand firm, they just blow past. If our hearts are weak, they carry us away. Everyone hears criticism, but some forget it immediately. Others embrace it completely, then lose sleep. The difference lies within our own minds. According to the Buddha's teachings, invisible strong winds exist in the world that stir the human mind. These are the 8 worldly winds: gain and loss, praise and blame, honor and dishonor, pleasure and pain. People suffer not because of life itself, but because they let these winds sweep them away. When praised, we rejoice. When blamed, we are sad. When we gain, we are ecstatic. When we lose, we are despondent. Our minds constantly chase after these winds, not knowing how to stand still. Therefore, those who practice do not try to avoid the wind, for wind is natural. Instead, they learn to stand firm against the wind so as not to be carried away. Many ask, why does criticism hurt us so much? Why can just a sarcastic remark sometimes make us feel hollow, as if we've lost something significant? The Buddha explained that this pain comes from the ego. The ego is our attachment to our self-image. When we believe we are good and others criticize us as bad, we are hurt. When we consider ourselves kind and others say we are not, we are sad. When we wish to be highly regarded and others dismiss us, we feel pain. It is not the words themselves that hurt us, but our ego rising up and wanting to protect its image. The bigger the ego, the more easily it is hurt. The stronger the ego, the more easily it is swept away by the worldly winds. Those who experience less pain are not emotionless, but because their ego is lighter. Those who suffer easily are not weak, but because they cling too much to self-images and refuse to let go. To understand this clearly, let's look at the story of Uncle To, which the Lighten Buddhist channel is about to share. This is a true story that happened in a small market in the suburbs. Uncle To was known for being gentle and honest. He sold vegetables in the morning and helped out with chores for several families around the market in the afternoon. Everyone liked him very much because he never argued or spoke harsh words to anyone. He was slow-paced, but thoughtful. If he saw someone couldn't afford their purchase, he would happily give them a discount. People often said he was so kind, he never stayed angry at anyone for longer than an afternoon. Yet a single remark kept him awake for 3 consecutive nights. That day, the market was crowded, the sun was hot, and everyone was in a hurry. A customer stopped by Uncle To's vegetable stall. The person stood for a moment and then said, "You're old, Uncle. Why are you so slow at doing business?" Uncle To was startled, as if someone had thrown a stone directly into his heart. He couldn't say anything. The customer left, but the words remained. That afternoon, he felt heavy-hearted. That evening, he ate dinner, but found no taste. At night, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The words kept replaying in his mind. He wondered if he was truly useless. Was he bothering others? Was old age making him too slow? He remembered all the compliments from neighbors before, how lovely he was, how kind, how careful in his work. But for some reason, the compliments didn't stay. Only the criticism tormented him. The second night, he still couldn't sleep. He felt sad and hurt. He wasn't angry at the customer, but blamed himself. He kept thinking about what happened. Just one sentence made him feel worthless. By the third night, Uncle To was exhausted, but his mind was still burning like fire. As he sat down at the wooden table behind his house, he suddenly realized something. The person who said those words was a stranger. They had only passed through his life for a few minutes, yet he had given them the power to make him lose sleep for 3 nights. He realized that the suffering wasn't caused by the words, but by his own act of holding on to them. If he hadn't held on, those words would have dissipated long ago, like a passing breeze. He understood that his ego had been touched. He thought he was good, so when someone said he wasn't good, he was hurt. He thought he was kind, so when someone criticized him, he was sad. The pain came entirely from within, not from outside. Uncle To's story is a reflection of many of us. We live kindly, but are still misunderstood. Live peacefully, but are still criticized. Live wholeheartedly, but are still talked about. We carry too many burdens in our hearts from the words of others. When someone praises us, we are overjoyed as if celebrating a festival. When someone criticizes us, we are sad as if the sky has fallen. Our minds are controlled by the words of others without us even realizing it. This is what the Buddha called being swept away by the 8 worldly winds. When we encounter the wind of praise, we rise high. When we encounter the wind of criticism, we fall. If our minds have no anchor, any wind can make us sway. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse that says, "No one can avoid criticism or praise, whether they live a holy life or an ordinary one. The Buddha taught that even a perfect person cannot avoid the four winds of praise and blame, and the four winds of gain and loss. Therefore, if we let the words of others control our emotions, we will never find peace. A practitioner is someone who knows how to listen without holding on, to see without grasping, to keep their mind like a calm lake. Wind blows across the lake, creating ripples, but the ripples are only on the surface. Beneath, the water remains clear. That is the mind of one who has learned to stand firm. Words are inherently light like wind, but if we hold them in our hearts, they become a needle. This needle is not jabbed into us by others, but by ourselves, as we hold it and stab ourselves. When someone criticizes us, we can listen if it's true. If it's false, let it fall like a dry leaf. There's no need to carry it and burden yourself. When someone praises us, we can be happy. But don't let the praise feed the ego. Because if we get used to being praised, just one word of criticism will make us feel like the sky is falling. Thus, the size of our ego largely determines the peace within our hearts. If you've ever tossed and turned because of a single remark, you are not alone. Countless people share that suffering. But the good news is that we can completely escape if we understand its nature, understand the cause and effect of emotions, and understand that whoever's mind still fluctuates with praise and blame cannot yet be free. Like a leaf blown everywhere by the wind. But if it's the root of a tree, no matter how strong the wind, it won't be shaken. So what we need is not to avoid the wind, but to grow stronger within our minds. To grow stronger, not to compete, but to no longer be swept away. To apply this in life, practice listening to your own mind before listening to others. When someone says something that bothers you, pause and see if you are reacting from your ego. Immediately ask yourself, do their words truly make me a lesser person? Or are they just seeing me from their very narrow perspective? Practice slow breathing to calm your mind. When the mind settles, the ego shrinks. When the ego shrinks, all criticism becomes as light as dust. If the comment is true, accept it to improve. If it's false, smile and let it pass. The mind is like water. If kept calm, it reflects the moon and stars. If stirred, it will only be mud. Live like a bamboo tree. Bamboo is soft, but not weak. The wind bends it, but does not break it. Bamboo knows how to bow down to let the wind pass. Humans are the same. When encountering criticism, bend a little to let it pass. Don't resist. Don't hold on. Let it be like the wind rustling through leaves. Remember that another person's words do not define you. They only see a small part of you. They only meet you for a few minutes, while you have lived your whole life to become a kind person. So why should we let a few seconds of their words destroy our years of kindness? When you master this, you will feel much lighter. You will no longer lose sleep over others' words. You will feel freer. You will see that compliments are just passing breezes. Criticisms are also just passing breezes, and then you will begin to enter the state of dwelling in peace that the Buddha often taught. Only one who stands firm against the wind is truly mature. Only one who is not swayed by the words of others is truly strong. There are days when you feel you have lived sincerely, acted kindly, endured as much as possible, yet you are still misunderstood. Sometimes you just want to peacefully do your work, but someone utters a word that stings your heart as if someone has pulled it hard with their hand. Sometimes you find yourself trying to maintain harmony, avoiding conflict. Yet others misinterpret your intentions and hurt you. There are times you want to explain, so people understand you mean no harm, wanting to say a few words to clarify everything. But the more you speak, the more exhausted you feel. If the listener's heart is not open, your words will never enter. The more you explain, the more they misunderstand. And in those moments, you feel like you're falling into a bottomless void. Sometimes you just want a little peace, but instead you receive a storm. Then you ask yourself if you are too weak, too sensitive, that just someone's words can make your heart heavy, as if carrying a boulder. Such pains are not always spoken aloud by everyone. Many choose silence because they don't want to bother anyone, nor do they want to complicate matters further. But within them, hundreds of conflicting thoughts churn. There is hurt, resentment, disappointment. Silent on the outside, but the mind inside is like strongly stirred water. The most exhausting feeling is being misunderstood with no way to make others understand. If you've ever been in that situation, you'll know how painful that feeling is. Pain because you did nothing wrong. Pain because your kindness is doubted. Pain because the truth is not heard. And especially pain because sometimes you don't know whether to speak or remain silent. You fear that if you speak, people will call it an excuse. But if you remain silent, you carry the injustice in your heart. In Buddhism, silence is not avoidance. Silence is a state of wisdom. The ancients said that the deeper the water, the calmer it is. The larger the tree, the less it sways. Thus, when a person has gone through many trials of life, they tend to speak less and observe more. They do not rush to speak because they know that words cannot change a mind full of prejudice. They are silent because they understand that some things time will answer on its own. When the mind is still agitated, speaking much only creates more karma. When the mind is clear, not speaking is already a very profound statement. In Buddhism, it is taught that silence is a wise person's response. Not being silent means losing, but winning against oneself. Human psychology inherently likes to be recognized and fears being misunderstood. When someone says something unfavorable about us, the ego immediately reacts. The ego wants to prove itself right. The ego wants to protect the image we have built for so long. But the older you get, the more you realize that reacting instinctively does not help you solve anything. For those who do not want to understand, no matter how much you say, it is useless. For those who have placed you in the wrong position, all your explanations become meaningless. Only those who are sufficiently mindful and clear-headed can keep their minds from being swept into a whirlpool of emotions. Silence is a way to keep the mind from being stirred by anger or resentment. When you do not retaliate, you are cutting off the stream of negative emotions that could cause more suffering for both sides. In a small alley, there lived an old woman alone for over 20 years. She was not rich, but lived very comfortably. In the morning, she watered a few potted plants in front of her yard. In the afternoon, she sat picking up dry leaves. In the evening, She read a few pages of scripture and went to bed early. All her neighbors liked her because she was gentle and spoke little. One day it rained heavily, and water collected on the small road in front of her house. Someone passing by saw the water couldn't drain and immediately blamed her, saying she had placed too many potted plants, blocking the drain. The words sounded sharp as a thin knife. The person spoke and left without looking back. She heard every word clearly, but she did not reply. She just smiled gently and quietly moved a few potted plants inside, then swept her yard clean. In her heart, there was no thought of complaint or resentment. She continued her work as if nothing had happened. A few days later, that same neighbor accidentally saw sanitation workers clearing the drain and discovered that the reason for the flooding was not her potted plants, but trash swept down from the beginning of the alley. At that moment, the neighbor felt remorse. He brought some fruit to apologize to her. She just smiled kindly and said a sentence that the neighbor remembered forever. Sometimes silence is faster than 1,000 explanations. The words were gentle, yet profound, seemingly simple, but containing a lifetime of experience. The truth always reveals itself without needing noise. Truth has its own light, and that light doesn't need defenders. It will manifest at the right time. One who understands this will no longer want to argue to prove themselves right. They only need to keep their minds serene, and that is enough. In the scriptures, there is a story about a woman who falsely accused the Buddha. She spoke evil words, even trying every way to make everyone think the Buddha had done wrong. But the Venerable One remained calm, continued to teach the Dharma, and walked slowly and peacefully on his path. He did not argue with her, did not explain himself, did not complain. The crowd was initially agitated, but when the truth was revealed, people respected the Buddha even more. That story is not meant to teach us that silence alone will heal everything. The story teaches us that some things, if we try to solve them with impulsiveness, will only add fuel to the fire. But if we face them with a calm mind, the truth will reveal itself without us having to speak up to defend it. During the Buddha's time, someone asked him why he sometimes remained silent when questioned about metaphysical issues, such as whether the universe had a beginning or whether the soul persists after death. The Buddha replied that silence, in such cases, was the most appropriate answer, because there are questions that do not contribute to liberation, do not help us reduce suffering, and certainly do not bring us closer to wisdom. In life today, it is the same. Sometimes, silence is precisely so that we do not waste energy on trivial matters. Silence to avoid creating more karma. Silence to prevent words from becoming arrows that hurt someone. Silence because we understand that our self-worth does not lie in what others say. When you choose to be silent at the right time, you are giving control of your mind back to yourself. You are not allowing others' negative emotions to enter your heart. You are not letting their words sway your inner peace, which you are striving to maintain. You know who you are, and you understand what you are doing. Silence is like a shield protecting your soul from unnecessary things. By not reacting, you are protecting your own peace. By not rushing to retaliate, you have taken a step further than the person who hurt you. In that moment, you are the victor, not over others, but over your own impulsive ego, over the anger that just arose, over the negative energy that wanted to erupt. The Zen Buddhist channel reminds us that in Buddhist teachings, there are 8 worldly winds: gain and loss, praise and blame, honor and dishonor, pleasure and pain. This life is like a lake whose surface is constantly stirred by the wind. If our minds are light like a leaf, we will be carried away wherever the wind blows. When praised, we rejoice to the point of forgetting ourselves. When criticized, we are sad to the point of losing our peace. When supported by others, we imagine ourselves more valuable than others. When misunderstood, we feel small and useless. But if our minds are firm, like the roots of a large tree, the wind can only rustle the leaves, but cannot uproot us. A person who is mentally mature is one who does not let these 8 winds disturb their heart. Not because they no longer have emotions, but because they understand that others' emotions do not define their worth. They understand that every word of praise or criticism is merely a passing breeze, none of which can last long. What truly endures is whether your mind is strong enough to stand firm. Silence becomes powerful when we understand that it is a choice of wisdom, not helplessness. The helpless are silent because they don't know what to say. The wise are silent because they understand that nothing needs to be said. The more you develop your inner self, the more you understand that reacting less is a blessing. Not arguing does not mean you have lost, but that you are clear-headed enough not to be unconsciously dragged into a reaction. Not explaining does not mean you are wrong, but that you trust in the truth. Truth does not need noise. It will shine like the moon illuminating water, no matter how cloudy the sky. The profound lesson from the old woman's story is that peace always comes from within. When we are silent in the face of misunderstanding, we are sowing seeds of compassion and patience in our hearts. When we don't retaliate against hurtful words, we are opening a wider path for ourselves. When we let the truth do its work, we are preserving a space of peace for ourselves. A person who knows when to be silent is one who clearly understands that not everything needs words to be resolved. Some things need explanation, but some things just need time. When you see the truth illuminate itself, you will know that your silence was justified. The important message that listeners can take away is to practice looking at everything more gently. When someone hurts you with words, pause for a breath and remind yourself that you don't need to be swept into their negative energy. When you encounter misunderstanding, try to keep your heart calm, because those who understand you won't need much explanation from you. And those who don't want to understand you, no matter how much you say, it won't be enough. Whenever you feel your heart starting to stir, close your eyes and remember the image of a calm lake. Let your mind become that lake. If the wind blows, the water surface will only ripple with a few gentle waves. Then return to stillness. Nurture silence with slow breaths, with compassion, with faith in goodness. When you live in the stillness of the mind, external things no longer have the power to hurt you as before. Life sometimes cannot avoid unintentional words that wound us, but we can choose how to face them. We can let them make us sad, or we can let them become lessons that help us grow. The silence we maintain in painful moments is a precious gift that life bestows upon our souls. When we no longer react impulsively, we are gradually becoming a better version of ourselves, And when we stand firm in the wind, we have truly matured. My dear friend, perhaps many times in life you have felt exhausted just because of the words of others. Sometimes you just want to live peacefully and do your own work. But for some reason, others can conjure up so many stories about you. You may have been misunderstood without knowing who to explain to, been falsely accused despite being completely innocent, or simply been judged because you chose a lifestyle different from what they are accustomed to seeing. The truth is, the kinder you live, the more easily you are noticed. The more honest you are, the more easily you are made a subject of gossip. In such moments, doesn't your heart feel heavy? How many nights have you lain awake with someone's words still echoing in your head? So strange that you wonder what they were thinking to say such things. You may have even blamed yourself, wondering if you weren't skillful enough, gentle enough, or good enough for people to stop talking about you. And the more you think, the more exhausted you become. People often have a habit of judging others based on fleeting moments, partial information, or even just their own imagination. The more you try to explain, the longer the rumors spread. The more you try to prove yourself, the more people use your efforts to twist things their way. Until you are exhausted and wonder when your life will ever escape the chatter of the world. Anyone who has been caught in a whirlwind of gossip understands this feeling. It's not physical pain, but like a grain of sand in the eye. The more you blink, the more it stings. The more you rub, the more it swells. According to Buddhist teachings, gossip is inherently a manifestation of ignorance. Those who do not understand things, who have not seen into their own minds, often like to look outward and find something to talk about, to distinguish, to judge. The Buddha taught that when the mind is agitated, the mouth easily follows suit. Those who do not keep their minds pure will use words as a way to relieve their inner uneasiness. They see someone different and easily scrutinize them. They see someone better than themselves and easily become envious. They see someone quiet and assume that person is hiding something. And so, the worldly chatter begins. But in reality, what they say does not reflect who you are, but only exposes their own inner state. Impulsive people easily speak harshly. Anxious people easily suspect. People who lack joy often like to scrutinize others' lives, to forget the emptiness in their own hearts. Human psychology is inherently strange. When someone sees you living correctly and kindly, they cannot tolerate it, because your kindness shines a light on their own imperfections. When someone sees you silent, they assume you are hiding something. When they see you succeed, they suspect you are lucky. When you fail, they believe it is your just deserts. People often judge based on emotion, not on truth. They prefer to look at appearances rather than understand the inner reasons. The Buddha taught that the human mind is like the surface of a lake. When the lake is murky, everything reflected in it is distorted. Only when the lake is clear can the entire scene be seen distinctly. People speak falsely about you, not because you are bad, but because their minds are clouded. They do not see who you truly are. They only see an image they have created in their own minds and project it onto you. There's a famous story in Zen Buddhism that helps us understand the nature of gossip more deeply. Long ago, in a small village, there lived a Zen master who lived very simply. He was known for his virtue, kindness, and detachment from worldly affairs. One day, a young woman in the village made a mistake and became pregnant. Fearing her parents' scolding, she lied and said the Zen master was the father of the child. The entire village was in an uproar. They came to criticize, insult, and disparage him. People brought the baby to the Zen master and told him he had to take responsibility. In the face of all these accusations, the Zen master simply said 2 words. "Is that so?" He did not explain, did not react, did not get angry. He took the baby in and cared for it, even though he knew he was not its father. Some time later, the girl, regretting her false accusation, confessed the truth. The villagers came to apologize to the Zen master and wanted to take the child back home. The Zen master still just said his familiar 2 words. "Is that so?" Then he handed the baby back to them. There was no reproach, no resentment, no torment. He let everything pass like the wind rustling through bamboo, not grasping, not holding, not letting his mind be entangled by anyone's words. This story lives on to this day because it contains a very profound lesson. When people talk about you, that is their business. Whether you have peace or not, that is your business. The Zen master chose peace instead of arguing. He knew that worldly talk has no end. If today you argue against 1 word, tomorrow there will be 10 other words that will continue to exhaust you. He knew that the truth always finds a way to reveal itself without needing to be strenuously defended. He also knew that what others say does not determine his worth. His own mind is what determines his peace. The Buddha once taught that gossip is like the sound of wind sweeping over the roof. You hear it, but you don't need to hold on to it. The wind blows over the roof and then moves on. It only becomes a problem when you open your heart to welcome it in. The human mind is the same. If you pay too much attention to external words, your mind will be filled with dirt. But if you let them pass like a breeze, your mind will maintain its clarity. Words that are untrue about you have no power to hurt you, unless you allow them to fall into your heart. Others speaking falsely is not as frightening as you believing those false things. When you understand this nature, you will realize that maintaining peace for your mind is far more important than trying to please anyone. People love to talk because the mouth is theirs. They talk when happy, talk when sad, talk to relieve stress, talk to feel superior to someone, talk to fill the emptiness in their lives. You cannot control what they say, but you can control how you react. The wise do not plunge into a sea of words to drown themselves. The wise stand on the shore and watch the waves crash and dissipate without attachment. However, becoming gentle in the face of gossip is not easy. The human mind always tends to want to be understood correctly, to be recognized, to be respected. When you hear someone speak falsely about you, the first feeling is usually hurt. You will wonder why they said such a thing, why they don't understand you, why they don't seek the truth before judging. But the Buddha taught that in life, not everyone has the ability to see the true nature of things. Not everyone understands you. And not everyone has the responsibility to understand you. People only see according to their level of perception. Those with a narrow mind see everything with a narrow view. Those with a broad mind will see you with compassion. But even so, there will still be people who, no matter how good you live, will not be pleased with you. Therefore, the effort to please everyone will only make you more tired. If you look deeper, you will see that gossip is actually a test for your inner self. A tree with strong roots cannot be toppled by any strong wind. If the human mind is steadfast, then worldly words, no matter how noisy, are just distant echoes. Someone asked a master how to overcome negative words. The master smiled and said, "When you carry a bottle of clean water through mud, the water remains clear because you don't open the cap." Your mind is the same. If you don't open the door for gossip to enter, it cannot cloud you. The lesson from the Zen master story teaches us that sometimes a strong reaction is not strength, but weakness. When someone speaks falsely about you, that is when you have the opportunity to choose between maintaining your peace or losing it. The truth doesn't need you to shout to defend it. The one who speaks falsely today will eventually get tired, but the truth never perishes. You cannot forbid anyone from speaking, but you can choose not to take their words into your heart. When you understand that everyone can only say what is consistent with their perception, you will realize that they are not worth your heartache. Some people speak out of ignorance, some out of misunderstanding, some out of envy, but none of it changes your true nature. From this, you will see that living peacefully is not about avoiding all gossip, but about learning to live with it while keeping your mind steadfast. Life is like a river. The water is sometimes clear, sometimes muddy. But a wise person will not stoop to drink water when it is muddy. When your mind is still swayed by the words around you, it is a sign that you need to return and take better care of yourself. Whenever you hear something unpleasant, instead of rushing to believe or be sad, take a deep breath. Ask yourself if it's true and if the speaker understands you. If they don't understand, will your sadness make them understand better? If they intentionally hurt you, will your pain make them change? By asking yourself this, you will gradually find yourself less dependent on the judgment of others. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse that says, "Whether praised or blamed, the wise remain unmoved." This sounds simple, but practicing it requires much cultivation. You must understand that praise and blame are two sides of the same coin. Today they praise you. Tomorrow they might criticize you. Today they love you. Tomorrow they might hate you. The human mind changes with the weather, with emotions, with self-interest. When you understand this law, you will no longer cling to worldly opinions. You know who you are. You know how you are living. And that is enough. Sometimes in life, what you need is not to block your ears from all words, but to open your heart to understand that not every voice is worth holding on to. View gossip as dry leaves falling on the water's surface. The leaves fall and drift away with the current. The water does not cling to them. Your mind should also be like that water, letting what doesn't belong to you pass. You don't need to hold on to it and burden your heart. Practicing letting go of gossip begins with you stopping blaming yourself. You are not at fault when others misunderstand you. You are not at fault for living kindly yet still being rumored about. You are not at fault for choosing a life different from the model they expect. What you need is to look deep into your inner self and see if you are living true to your own values. If so, then you are enough. When faced with gossip, you can remind yourself that this is just a test for your mind. You can choose peace instead of reacting. You can choose silence instead of arguing. You can choose to smile instead of letting your mind be dragged away, just like the Zen master of old, who simply said, "Is that so?" Those words were not indifference, but the wisdom of one who clearly saw the nature of worldly talk. He neither denied nor affirmed. He let the truth speak for itself. In daily life, you can apply this spirit by always returning to your breath before reacting. If someone speaks about you, listen with an observing mind, asking if it is true. If it is not true, there is no need to take it to heart. If it has some truth, consider it an opportunity to adjust yourself. But whether true or false, you still keep your mind peaceful. Because others' words are their business. What your mind is like is your business. When you learn to live this way, you will find life much lighter. You will no longer have to live to contend with meaningless words. You will no longer have to try to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to chase after and extinguish every spark of gossip. You just need to keep your mind like a tranquil lake. When the lake is calm, the moon can reflect. When the heart is at peace, happiness remains. Remember that no one has the right to value you but yourself. Others only see a small part of your life. They don't know how much pain you've overcome, how many sleepless nights, how many times you've held back tears to keep living. They certainly don't know how hard you've tried. Therefore, don't let their words dictate how you see yourself. Gossip is just wind. Whether your mind chooses to hold on to it or not is what matters. From today, I hope you will learn to pause a little, smile a little, and tell yourself that what others say is their business, but peace is your right. Then you will find your mind as light as a dewdrop on a lotus leaf. Worldly words, even if they fall, will not make you muddy. Perhaps even now, amidst your busy life, there are still things that make your heart indescribably heavy. There are words others speak casually, yet they fall into your heart like a stone that never dissolves. There are angry reproaches, an unsympathetic glance, or an unfounded criticism. The speaker says their piece and walks away, while you carry it on your shoulders for days, months. Some are misunderstood because of an untrue story. Though they have lived very kindly, as gentle people who never contend with anyone, they always end up bearing the brunt of things. Sometimes you remain silent to maintain harmony, but people mistake your silence for weakness. You give so much, but receive strange indifference in return. You live well, keeping your heart upright. Yet the words of others still wound your heart in unpredictable ways. When hurt, you choose silence. When insulted, you choose to move on. But for some reason, the feeling of injury remains intact within you. Many people often say to each other that everything will be over, everything will pass. But in your heart, it doesn't pass that quickly. You still remember, still think, still ask yourself hundreds of whys. Why did they treat you that way? Why did their words pierce your heart so deeply? Why can't you let go, release, lighten your heart? At some point, you realize that what hurts you is not those words, but your act of holding on to them for too long. You hold on to them so much that they transform into invisible shackles, binding you. Peace doesn't come from others changing. Peace also doesn't come from life suddenly treating us more gently. Peace only begins when we understand ourselves enough, know how to let go of what doesn't belong to us. Life is inherently impermanent. Everything changes day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. The world never stands still. The words of others are certainly not a truth for us to cling to. They praise, then they forget. They criticize, then they also forget. Only we are the ones who cherish, remember, and bind ourselves to invisible arrows. In Buddhist teachings, the moment of being hurt and refusing to let go is called the arising of afflictions. Afflictions arise from within us, not from outside. Others throw insults at us, but whether we pick them up or not is our choice. Just as if someone offers us a gift, but we don't accept it, the gift still belongs to the giver. Similarly, if someone says something bad about us, if we don't hold on to it, those words remain with them, not belonging to us. Yet, we often do the opposite. We accept everything, both good and bad words, and unconsciously keep them in our hearts. Until one day, our minds are cluttered, and there's no room for peace. The human mind is like water. When the wind is light, the water ripples. When there's a great storm, the water churns. But if we know how to let the wind pass, the lake returns to stillness. There are times when our minds are strongly blown by the winds of life, making us sway and tired. But the Buddha taught that everything will pass, just as the wind never stays and never carries anything away. As long as we don't cling to those winds, our minds will lighten again. Each time we are criticized or insulted by others, we should ask ourselves if it is true. If it is true, consider it a lesson for self-improvement. If it is not true, there is no reason to carry it with us for life. This is clearly demonstrated in Dr. Nam's story. He was a capable and dedicated doctor. He worked carefully, always prioritizing his patients. Yet, 10 years ago, during a meeting, a colleague made a sarcastic remark, saying he had no talent. That comment was just a fleeting word, perhaps stemming from jealousy, personal ego, or a momentary emotion of the other person. But it happened at a time when he was tired and lacked self-confidence. So instead of letting it pass, he held on to it like a sharp, cold knife pinning into his heart. For 10 years, he worked in fear of making mistakes, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. He tried many times harder than usual, not because he wanted to be better, but because he wanted to prove he wasn't useless. Every time he was about to make a decision at work, that old remark echoed in his head. He constantly asked himself if he was truly as incompetent as that person said. Time passed, and the speaker had forgotten the remark long ago. They no longer remembered, nor did they care. They spoke and moved on with their lives. But he didn't. He held on to it like an old wound that never healed. Then one day, looking back at the past, he suddenly realized that he himself was the one causing his own suffering. He remembered the Buddha's teaching that suffering originates from grasping. When we hold too much in our hearts, the mind becomes heavy. When we learn to let go, the mind naturally lightens. Realizing this, he began to turn to meditation. At first, it was just gentle breaths, a few minutes of sitting still to observe the mind's process. But gradually, he found small spaces within himself where peace began to sprout. He learned to breathe and name emotions. Breathing in, he imagined releasing a fear. Breathing out, he felt a little lighter within. Day by day, he realized that it wasn't others who caused his suffering, but he himself who kept that remark in the deepest part of his mind. And when he let it go, he felt as if he had just stepped through a door into another world, lighter, freer, and more peaceful. Also, since he started meditating, his mind became clearer. He no longer reacted too strongly to praise or criticism. He understood that praise brings joy for a moment, and criticism brings sadness for a temporary period. If we live our entire lives just listening to others, we will lose ourselves. But when we listen to our true nature, we will know what is important and what is not worth holding on to. Thanks to this change, his work improved. He worked with clarity, without the invisible pressure weighing him down. His family also became happier because he returned to his true self. Dr. Nam's story is also the story of many of us. We all sometimes hold on to words that hurt us. But life is not meant for us to carry wounds forever. Life is meant for us to learn the lesson of letting go. The Buddha taught that impermanence is the key to opening the door to peace. What exists today may disappear tomorrow. What hurts us today may have no meaning in the future. What truly exists is not praise or criticism, but how we face them. The Buddha once said that when you pick up a hot coal to throw at someone else, you are the one who gets burned first. The criticism we embrace is like holding that hot coal. It doesn't hurt others, but it burns and stings our hands, then spreads to our hearts, forming blisters that are hard to heal. Until we choose to drop that coal, our hands will not be free. Letting go is not easy, but it is the only path to true peace. Letting go is not about completely forgetting everything, but about not letting them control our lives anymore. Every mindful breath is a step closer to letting go. When you gently breathe in and tell yourself you are letting go, you are practicing untying each knot in your heart. When you breathe out and say your mind is lightening, you are helping your heart return to its inherent, peaceful state. You can try it right now. Sit still, close your eyes, or keep them slightly closed. Breathe in very gently and feel the air entering your body. As you breathe in, tell yourself you are letting go of something that weighs heavily on your heart. As you breathe out, feel the lightness spreading throughout your body and mind, breath by breath. You are healing yourself. You are stepping out of the things that have chained you for so long. When you learn to let go, you will realize your heart is spacious. When your heart is spacious, everything becomes lighter. You no longer let anyone's words determine your self-worth. You are no longer controlled by fear. You no longer let the past hold you back. You look at life with more understanding, more kindness, and more love. At that very moment, peace will naturally enter your life. The biggest lesson from Dr. Nam's story is something everyone needs to remember. People say things, then they forget. But if we hold on to them in our hearts, we are the ones who suffer. Peace does not come from someone apologizing to us or recognizing us. Peace comes when we learn to remove the dust and clutter from our own minds. When we learn to let go, our minds become light like clouds, and clouds are only beautiful when they are free in their own sky. Letting go is not an option. It is the only path that leads us to peace. When you learn to let what doesn't belong to you return to where it should belong, your heart will open. When you learn to release what hurts you, life will grant you the serenity you deserve. Letting go is the first step, the most important step, and also the most necessary step to live a truly light life. Perhaps as you listen to this final part, there are still things in your heart that you cannot put into words. There are hurts you have carried for many years. There are times you have been misunderstood despite always being sincere. There are times you tried to live well, but still suffered losses. There are also moments when you were silent because you didn't want to hurt anyone. But then that very silence caused others to misjudge you. Sometimes you just want to live a peaceful life, but the world keeps sending unintentional arrows that pierce your heart. I understand all these things because many people have carried similar wounds in their hearts, and they too have learned to move past them. People often say that words cost nothing to buy, so choose them wisely to please each other. But in reality, words always have a power greater than we imagine. A word that warms another's heart can also be a seed of goodness that helps them stand firm. But a harsh, careless word can make someone lose faith in themselves. Sometimes you just want to be silent to keep your mind calm. But life always presents loud noises. The noise of gossip, of praise and criticism, of expectations placed on your shoulders. These sounds of life easily sweep our minds away, without us knowing that true peace lies in the inner stillness within each person. In Buddhist teachings, speech is considered one of the strongest forms of karma. Karma from actions is seen by others. Karma from thoughts causes us suffering. But karma from speech directly affects both ourselves and those around us. That is why, in the Eightfold Path, the Buddha presented right speech as an important means for people to preserve their souls. Right speech means speaking appropriately, speaking truthfully, speaking kindly, speaking words that bring benefit. This does not require us to speak much. On the contrary, the less we speak, the more we avoid unnecessary troubles. Because when the mind is not pure, words often easily turn into arrows, hurting both ourselves and others. Humans are inherently prone to react, to want to justify themselves when hurt, to argue when criticized. When slandered, we want to prove the truth. When insulted, we want to retort to defend ourselves. Everyone has this psychology, and it is a very natural reaction. But the longer we live, the more we realize that words spoken, when the mind is not clear, often lead to affliction. Many have regretted words uttered in anger. Many have lost valuable relationships simply because they didn't know how to maintain silence. That is why the Buddha taught that one who knows when to be silent is one who possesses wisdom. Silence is not weakness. Silence is when we are strong enough to maintain peace for ourselves There's a very small story, but it contains a big lesson. An old master once told his student that humans are like a bell. If the inside is hollow and weak, just a gentle tap will produce a jarring sound. But if the inside is solid and full, no matter how hard you strike it, the sound will be deep, warm, and steady. He meant that the human mind is the same. Those who are not steadfast internally will be deeply hurt by even a slight touch of worldly words. But those who know how to keep their minds peaceful, no matter what others say, will remain firm. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, "As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so are the wise unshaken by praise or blame." This teaching reminds us that praise and blame are both like wind. They come and go, not staying long. If we chase after praise, we will forget who we are. If we are pained by criticism, we will lose the self-confidence we naturally possess. One who knows how to speak less and keep their mind still will understand that nothing external can long disturb their mind. They understand that the true value of a person does not lie in praise or blame, but in how they live, how they treat others, and in the goodness of their heart. The greatest lesson in life is to learn to return to oneself. Learn to know when to speak and when to maintain silence. Learn to know that every word we speak can become a seed sown in the lives of others. Some seeds bring happiness, some bring suffering, and we are the ones who choose the type of seed we want to sow. If we choose to sow seeds of goodness, life will blossom into joy. If we sow seeds of suffering, we ourselves will be the first to reap them. One who speaks evil words first distorts their own mind. One who speaks kind words first brightens their own mind. Even in everyday life, we have witnessed many such stories. There was a kind woman who always lived with great patience. She rarely spoke much, but every word she uttered carried kindness. She once shared that when she was young, she was very impulsive and said words that hurt others. But one time, after saying something that made her best friend cry, she felt immense regret. From that day on, she learned to slow down. She learned to breathe before reacting. She learned to observe her mind so as not to be swept away by fleeting anger. And from then on, she became a person who spoke less, but whose heart shone brighter. Not everyone is fortunate enough to realize this early. Some spend half their lives chasing after the words of others. Some live in exhaustion because they're always trying to please outsiders, forgetting to nurture their own minds. There are also those who speak much but receive more suffering in return. They don't know that speaking much sometimes opens up more negative karma. The Buddha taught that the wise use words as a gardener uses water. Enough is to water, too much is waste. Words are the same. Spoken at the right time, they resolve. Spoken at the wrong time, they cause trouble. Looking back at all that we have journeyed through in this video, perhaps you have seen more clearly that peace does not lie in how others perceive you. Peace lies in how you face yourself and how you use words to nurture your own mind. To speak less is not to isolate yourself from life, but to hear your inner voice more clearly. To speak less is not to become cold, but to preserve what is most important to say. Silence at the right time is not avoidance, but to avoid sowing more negative karma. Keeping your mind pure is not difficult. You just need to know how to pause before every word you want to say. The final message I want to send you in this part is a healing reminder. Live kindly, so your heart is always beautiful. Speak less to preserve the best energy for yourself. Know when to be silent when necessary, so your mind is not swept away by unwanted things. Keep your mind pure so that whenever you look at life, you see your journey as truly light. Every word we utter is a seed sown in our lives and the lives of others. If that seed is love, it will blossom into flowers. If that seed is anger, it will turn into thorns. One who sows flowers will receive fragrance. One who sows thorns will hurt themselves. Choose to sow seeds of compassion instead of seeds of suffering. Because life is already challenging enough. If we can lighten our own hearts and the hearts of others, that is already a great blessing. And to conclude, I send you a word full of Zen flavor, like a gentle breath, to close this journey. Amidst the noisy world, one who knows how to maintain silence has found the path to serenity. When you hear the sound of stillness within your own mind, you will know that peace has never left you. It is only waiting for you to pause and look deep inside. May you always maintain that stillness like a clear lake in the early morning. May you live a light life, from words to actions, and from thoughts to heart.